Welcome back to Here's My Thing podcast, where we discuss movie reviews, relationships, and more.
So I mentioned Heartthrob to my husband. I don't even know how it came up in conversation, and he laughed at me really hard for the longest time. And I remember Heartthrob being widely used when I was a kid, and I don't even know where it came from, but you know how sometimes you say things because it's in your memory bank, and then you don't realize how silly you sound until someone laughs at you. And then I said it again this morning, and he laughed at me again. So what are your thoughts on heartthrob? And then he had the nerve to question me about, like, what is a heartthrob? What does that even mean? Like, we're not from the same generation.
The reason why it's funny is because you never hear someone say heartthrob in a conversation. You normally just hear it in commercials or something about like a musician or whatever. And then, heartthrob, who's the one to say that heartthrob is a description for a male celebrity? So a female can't be a heartthrob? What's so manly about the word heartthrob? I don't know. It's just funny to hear it because in a day-to-day conversation, I normally don't hear heartthrob, especially if you're not speaking about a celebrity.
But didn't you used to hear it back in the day when we were kids, and it used to be like in magazines and in movies? I think it was.
I definitely heard the term. I definitely heard the term. It was just never like a vocabulary word that I or my friends would use. And then if I hear it, just like I heard it today.
That's the kind of laugh I got.
It's like, heartthrob? Who says that? No, this is just funny.
And then I go on to tell him that regular people are not heartthrobs. Only celebrities are heartthrob. And I'm just saying stuff because in my mind, I'm like, I've never heard a regular person say to someone else, he's a heartthrob. And then I look it up. I Google it, and it says a celebrity with good looks is considered a heartthrob. So funny. I was right without.
No, you were definitely right. It just sounds funny to, like, imagine us walking down the street and you see a male celebrity, and you're like, oh my God, he's a heartthrob. Like, that just sounds weird.
People used to talk like that.
Put it in a conversation like that, it's weird.
I think because people in our community didn't speak like that, you know what I mean? Like, but we did see it represented like that in television and in movies.
Yeah.
Where they did consider the person heartthrob. Sometimes the movie was just on the heartthrob. It was centered around the heartthrob. And I'm thinking about, like, She's All That and those movies where
I get it.
It was like the person had a crush on this person. And also, like, I know they say regular people aren't heartthrobs, but, like, I feel like in movies they would consider the regular people in those movies that were actually celebrities to be heartthrob, but they were playing regular people, so that math is not mathing. You know.
But how do you use that word in a daily conversation or even in a movie? How do you say that in a movie without it being a description? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when you say heartthrob, it's more of like a description of an announcement that you're about to make when you're promoting a movie or something or a commercial. But to say to someone, even if I'm watching a movie and they say, oh my God, he's a heartthrob, I'm probably gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh because it doesn't sound natural to say. It sounds like one of those description words you only put in the title of some type of movie or commercial or something that you're promoting.
I don't know. I've heard it a lot of times in my experience with movies. And I also watch a lot of romantic comedies, and they're used a lot in those movies. However, since you challenged me this morning, I decided to look it up and look at the origin.
You did a good job.
I looked up the origin this time too, and the origin, it originally first used in the 1800s.
Okay.
But I'm wondering, like, what celebrity did they have in the 1800s to be calling them heartthrobs? You know, like, what are we talking about? I'm like, who decided that it was first used in the 1800s? That math is not adding up, because I'm like, what celebrity are they talking about in the 1800s? Like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean?
So then, right. So that's another point. So, like, what qualifies you as a heartthrob? Like, what status or what look do you have to be described as a heartthrob?
I think if you're widely recognized as being attractive and you're widely known, then they associate heartthrob with that person. Like, people would go crazy over Leonardo DiCaprio back in the day when he was younger. Or like Brad Pitt. Like, people are widely, or even Denzel back when he was younger, people widely would say, like, people would say like, who's your dream guy, dream celebrity crush? And the dream celebrity crush that most people are selecting, those would be considered like heartthrobs back in the day, like Josh Hartnett from the 90s, which was like in the heartthrob era.
I have no idea who that is.
Well, I'm going to put a picture on here for everyone so they can know who Josh Hartnett was.
It's like,
and like Dawsons Creek, they had Joshua Jackson, who's now married to the Queen and Slim actress. And so they were like considered heartthrob, and you know, and Dawson's Creek. If you were like from that era, we're like millennials, so we're speaking from an era of people. And if you watch soap operas, a lot of the soap stars, you know, were considered. George Clooney was a soap star, and he was considered a heartthrob, and he's aging really well. But now people would just say he's attractive or a celebrity crush. They won't use heartthrob. I wonder when heartthrob became a thing that wasn't used anymore. I think as a millennial, I noticed that some of the words that I use are no longer in use. And like children often will tell me that like it's not being used anymore. So like you sound silly. Words like
but
for shizzle and those things like that that no longer
like slang and stuff.
That slang that was in at a certain time period that represent that time period. When you say it, you age yourself. And now everyone knows how old you are.
But the funny thing is, some of the things that age ourselves, they're trying to bring back, or they just never let go, like corny. People have been using the word corny for the longest.
People do not use corny anymore. The new term is weird, and weird was bad in the 90s. Like saying someone was weird was a bad thing to say, and now everyone's like, weird, you're being weird, you're acting weird, and that's like the new thing now.
I still say corny. If that shows my age, well, oh well, you're being corny.
But you are showing your age. You're aging yourself.
It doesn't even sound right. That's weird. Like even saying it's weird is to me is a description word of something that looks odd. You don't use weird in a conversation and call somebody corny. If they're corny, they're corny.
Yeah, well, they don't use corny anymore. I think if you use it, they'd be like, what does that mean? Oh, like Diddy called Young Miami Shorty Doo-Wop. And everybody was like, what does that mean? Is it because of the song WAP? And it's not the same thing. No. Shorty Doo-Wop was a term of endearment for someone that you like really are feeling, a female that you know that's chill. It was a term of endearment. And I thought it was so crazy that no one understood what Shorty Doo-Wop meant. But it was widely used in the 90s. It was like my dance nickname when I was in college.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is, it's not like I don't know the words, but if you ask me to define it, that's when you really got to think hard about it. Like, I heard of heartthrob before, but could I say, yes, heartthrob is a definition of a male celebrity who...
You couldn't. He could not say it.
...is attractive.
He could not say that.
I could not.
He laughed at me like I sound like the craziest person in the world. Like all of a sudden he's this young man, right, in his 20s.
You're right.
He is not this young man. He's a millennial like me who was living in the same time period. And sometimes I have to remind him and say, like, listen, we are from the same generation. You know what this means. You've heard this before. It's like stoop kid. You know what a stoop kid is.
No, you're absolutely right.
What is a stoop kid?
A stoop kid is the kid that is on the stoop that looks like they're always on the stoop. They're never like well dressed and look like they're high fashion.
He's literally describing stoop kid from Hey Arnold.
Yes,
that's what he's doing.
Yeah,
they're not always trashy dressing.
They got snot nose.
You're literally describing.
Their socks are always dirty.
No, stoop kids are kids that usually hang out on the stoop of their own home. Not like how it is now where you'll see people hang out on random other people's apartment stoops. It's like literally you live there and your mom say you could go outside, but she usually say you can't leave the stoop. That is a stoop kid. Oh, so here's my thing. My husband doesn't remember things as clearly because a part of him wasn't like really attached to the generation that we're from. I think that you were not attached to the 90s and the sayings and the things that we did that you're like,
I mean,
it's so like funny now to you. Whereas I'm like,
true.
It isn't. I think you're more attached to the early 2000s and the time in college.
It's true.
More so than the 90s.
I agree. I when I say, hey Siri, play some music, it plays my hip hop early 2000s. Hey,
oh my goodness.
Oh man,
Siri.
Stop listening. So in general, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And also, I grew up upstate New York, so we didn't have stoops. So that wasn't actually a thing in our normal vocabulary anyway.
I mean, that's true. I think if you don't have the representation, it's very difficult to connect your mentality to it. But like, I grew up in the city and they had stoops, which is just literally the stairs that leads into an apartment. It's not ground level. They just put random stairs on an apartment on the outside. So you have to climb a couple steps to get into the apartment, where it could literally be ground level and you could walk in. But the stoops were really lit because of the fact that your mom would tell you could go outside and you go outside and enjoy the day. You could, and as a kid like me, I could go and sit on the stoop and I can play with my doll and all that stuff. But I wasn't a stoop kid because my mom would actually allow me to play on the block. And this is back in the day when you had block parties and events and stuff like that. But also because I had an older brother and she knew he would watch me and she'd take care of me. And that's another thing from our generation, is like the older siblings watching the younger siblings. But I see that still happening. That's something that's not out of style, but I don't think I would be comfortable now that we're parents.
Yeah, but I will say, we didn't have stoops growing up upstate New York. We had balconies and fire escapes.
So fancy.
And and the balconies were balconies that didn't, where you can't fall through. They were like cement walls. Like literally you can't have a view unless you're tall enough to like look out. So it was like a wall that if you are maybe a teenager, you could see above. But if you're a kid, our parents would just send us out on this balcony and we'll play all day because it wasn't dangerous. It was just outside, and it was like a boarded room that was outside with no roof. And then the fire escapes was nothing we really played on, but it was like I always knew there was a fire escape. So one time there was a fire and we had to go out on the fire escape. So, and it was like a normal thing. Fire escapes and balconies were like a normal thing for houses or apartments, but not stoops. I don't think there's a stoop in upstate New York, at least not that I witnessed.
Yeah. We're wrapping up. All right, but generally, Heartthrob was widely used. And I think that if you are a millennial, is something familiar with you. If you were ones that used to watch romantic comedies, or ones like myself who forced their husbands to watch it with them.
Well, then let me ask you. I know I'm not a celebrity, but am I a heartthrob?
I mean, you're widely known to me, and you're attractive. I would say you're a heartthrob.
I'm glad I could throb your heart, baby.
And that's really what it means. It means that someone that makes your heart rate quickens when you see them. And so that's really...
It's like a damn cartoon character.
Oh, I'm going to put that in. So you're going to see the visual representation of a heartthrob. All right, y'all. Thanks for checking out Here's My Thing podcast.